So there's the briefing video for the 11th September 2023 meeting. There's the packet, reference packet, decent amount in there. Fair amount of votes. Pretty normal opening as far as the business section of the meeting goes, but pretty packed decision and discussion items, quite a few things. So we start out with the township hall hours. And this was changed a few months ago because before it was Monday through Friday, 9 to 4:30. It was changed to Monday to Thursday, 8 to 5:30. It was mentioned in there that it would be brought up at the September meeting. Now, I don't think it's a great plan to be switching hours back and forth, both internally and externally. It's confusing for citizens, it's confusing for employees. But because it was mentioned there, I didn't want to leave that. I wanted to bring it up since it was mentioned at the meeting. And, we've had a fair number of people come in on Fridays not really realizing it's closed. I've been here quite a number of times and talked to people about that. And any type of change like that, I think you're probably going to have a delay. We're probably going to have like a year delay before everyone really knows it, right? Because otherwise, a lot of people are not trying to interact with and pay attention to the government. They're trying to live their lives. And so they're just finding out if they're coming in for something in particular, a lot of times tax season, that sort of thing. So it'll probably take like a year turnover to get there. I think the expanded hours are decent. To expand the hours more, we would have had to rotate off hours for lunches, something like that, which I don't think would be a great plan internally with us not having enough people to make that work very well. Going earlier from 9 to 8, I think could allow some people to come in before their shifts if they have kind of that traditional 9 to 5. Obviously, 5:30, if people are getting out at 5, doesn't work great. But if people get out at 4:30 or 4, that type of thing, most of a first shift could make it here easier than coming at 4:30. So it's a reasonable change. Nevertheless, that's on here to go either way in that. Next, we have the Planning Commission appointment. And this one is, he's been on the board up to this point. Kevin, he's also, I believe he's the most recent member because he's finishing out a term from someone else that stepped away from there. He's done well at it and he's up for doing a full 3-year term. So that's what I proposed here. And then next we have Marvin for the Zoning Board of Appeals appointment. And he had been an alternate. When someone left the Zoning Board of Appeals, I had proposed him and it was confirmed for moving up to a full member. And on that time frame, he wouldn't be up yet. So this term would have come up a few months ago because I forgot that he was also finishing out one of those resigned terms. Nevertheless, I talked to him. He's good with doing another 3 years on there. And if it comes up and no one else is winning, he just continues. So we're good up to what has happened. But need to get that confirmed for doing another 3 years as well. Next, we have land bid opening on Middle Lake Road, and this is the tiny piece of property that we saw on the south side of Twin Lake that a neighbor requested part that they've been mowing already, and that was put up as a minimum bid of $500, and so we'll see if anyone bids on that. Next, we have the land sale request on Chicago and Michigan. So this is up by the village, not in the village, but in that region of the township. And there's 3 pieces there. This is the first meeting that it's at. So it's the request, it's the board deciding if we're willing to put it up for bid, along with how we're going to come up with the minimum for next month, which we normally do a realtor and realtor comparables and a true cash value from the assessor, and then set the minimum next month. The next month, we actually open bids. Next, we have the millage tax rates, and these are just the millages that should be just for the township itself. So it's the township income from the millages, and these get confirmed, get voted on, confirmed, and sent to the county to be filed. Next, we have abandoned roads deed, and so this is section of roads that a landowner just a little south of the village went to the road commission and proposed to abandon the rights of way that are in the woods that people aren't using and and aren't going to be developed into roads, or the proposal is that they shouldn't be developed into roads for the road commission, that type of thing. The road commission approved it. I wasn't sure exactly what happened after that. I thought it went to circuit court. But one of the things that ends up happening is the property gets deeded over to the township, with the idea that the township probably deeds it over to the neighboring landowners so that those little rights of way get split up. And this is a resolution to do that, to allow the township to do that, basically. Next, we have the Parks and Recreation Plan. So Christy pointed out that the Parks Plan was done in 2019, ends in 2023, and so that it should be redone. This motion is just to move that to the Planning Commission to start redoing it. And in the near future, so a few months from now, we'll also start the master plan process, which will take a little longer. I think the Parks and Rec will probably just take a few months, but that is the basic idea there. Next, we have bank account access. Because we had the deputy clerk resign, move to a different municipality, then we want to take her off the bank accounts. And Choice One specifically likes that to explicitly be stated in the meeting minutes with the person's name. So that's what that motion is for. Next, we have the cemetery form. So Heather, since she's been made cemetery coordinator, has been tackling multiple things with the cemeteries. One of them is that she's looking over the ordinances, and so she'll review those. There might be changes coming up in the future. This is a form for when people are purchasing their plots and things. And we didn't have an assignment form, and the one burial form that we had had confusing wording. Not that it fully does it now, because some of the legal phrases are archaic, but they are the legal phrases. She worked with MTA to make sure it was good, so it's an update of that. And checked with the ordinance for the cemeteries that it's supposed to go for a board vote, so that's why we have that on here. Next, we have a leaf blower, and this is a request from Nate, the maintenance supervisor, and talked about multiple different things, like getting better access to the bike trail, which we haven't had complaints about driving the truck on that for doing work on it, but it also makes sense, especially if there's a down tree, right? You're probably going to take a truck with the chainsaws to chop up the tree and move it, and that type of stuff, even if you're moving it off to the side. He thought about doing some sort of side-by-side, something like that, where you could also carry a leaf blower on it instead of walking the whole thing, which is a few miles, and blowing leaves. You could do it on riding on something like that, and then also transport stuff that's less than a truck. But moving away from that idea, he's looking at riding leaf blowers, which would be useful for the bike trail, so it could be blown off more. But also that's useful at the cemetery, and it's useful at the parks. And so that's what that proposal is here for. Next, we have our discussion items. One is the broadband study that was done in the county level. The township didn't participate, but I went to the meeting to get the results and see what things were like. You know, we have a couple of projects coming up. They won't be until I'm out of office. They'll probably be happening maybe in 2025, based on some grants some companies applied for. And I just wanted to include that information, and it's in the reference back up. I'll go through that next. But just kind of wanted to update people on that. Next, we have actually it's by 2030 is the state's plan for having everyone having broadband access. And so we'll see if those metrics are hit, but it sounds like from what I've heard is probably. Next, we have a housing study also done on a county level. And so I just wanted to include some information about this. And I mean, it basically states the housing market is extremely tight, right? If you're trying to rent or you're trying to buy, it is very difficult to get a place because there's not a ton available. And that will probably continue. But part of this housing study was to try to get developers to build more and make more available in the area. So that may be happening over the next few years. Next, we have Daniels Road blockade. And so a number of complaints over a while now. I'm not sure, maybe 6 months, a year, something like that. Maybe a little longer. But Daniels coming east off of Russell Road, northern portion of the township there, so across from the village. There's a lot of traffic to go back into the 2-track there. There's also a decent amount of drug dealing, some people that carry weapons, machetes, and stuff like that back and forth. So I had complaints from a number of people because it's a right of way but it's not a road. I didn't think we'd be able to block it off or really do much or anything with it. However, the road commission said that we can block it off in some way. It just has to be after their turnaround. So I've gone out there to meet the road commission people out there and looked at it and that type of thing. And we could do something, hire someone with a loader and push up some dirt mounds, maybe put some large wooden posts in the ground so that people could go through for walking or biking, or you could fit a dirt bike through there, something like that. But stop the vehicle traffic itself from going out there, dumping a lot of garbage, which we have major issues with in a bunch of areas. But it could be a decent spot to see if that type of thing helps or not. Next, we have gypsy/sponging laws. So, and a couple of work sessions on this, public work sessions to discuss things. There were two basic proposals. One was the $14,000 that was collected from the late 90s from a millage could be used on individual people's property that had requested it to spray from the ground and just on their property, which I think is a decent proposal. Another proposal that came up through one of the other talks was to refund that money back to property owners. Now that'd be a relatively small amount per parcel if you did it that way, of course. You also aren't getting it back to the people that necessarily paid it unless they've been there since the late 90s. And because it was a millage vote, right? So it was a public vote, then it was specifically intended for this one purpose as well. Essentially, the lawyer advises that it would probably make sense to use it for its intended purpose rather than to try to give it back, which there's not a great process in place for that. But nevertheless, that's as a discussion item on here. Next, we have meeting minutes, which there have been struggles with getting things done for quite a while. Meeting minutes is one of those things. And so I've tried to handle it in multiple different ways, asking and encouraging, and then also redistributing work, but nothing has worked great. And so I'm bringing it to the board for awareness purposes, essentially, and to hopefully improve on that. Next, we have CPL, and we had this as a discussion before about modifying the policy and just making it a little more open. Right now, it reads as it's part of my arbitrary decision, and I've redlined the item in here, so it's easy to see. It's available on the website. I got it up last night. And it's minor adaptation in there. So discussion on that. If there's a decent consensus on it, then I'll bring it for a vote in the next meeting. Next, we have the cell tower, and we went through this before. Company is contracted with the cell tower company to renegotiate their contracts. We even voted to look at one of those options, but then once I got the full contracts, they wouldn't give me the contract before the board voted on it. So the board voted, they gave me the full contract, and there was some stuff in there that didn't seem great, and so we didn't end up going through with it. So they've come back around to try to go through this again. I have some of the reference things included in reference packet, and then a couple of things included in here as well. The details of it specifically. Next, we have the vacation policy, and so this has come up a couple of times. I rewrote it twice, but we never ended up passing anything on it and getting anything done on it. We've been having staff meetings, and one of the main items, the main item for a while now, has been discussing this among staff. A lot of different options explored and a lot of different ideas, and we're starting to put that together. And so essentially this awareness so that in the future, in the near future, I'm thinking October, there will be a staff recommended policy for the board to vote on. And finally, we have the Jural Assembly. And so Al Richards had requested this. He reached out to me yesterday. I told him I could put it on here as a discussion item. He was talking about having the Jural Assembly meet at the Township Hall, to use the Township Hall. And so I said we should have it as a discussion item, and if the board wants to move forward with it, we could have it as a board vote. I've hesitancies about that philosophy on multiple different levels, or that it's a movement to create a change, always oriented towards better, right? Everyone's movement is, I just, have issues with it on an ideological, strategic, and tactical level, whether it's feasible, viable, and if it's desirable. So what I have is a discussion item here, and I included a quote from Al explaining the organization a little bit. In the reference packet included quite a lot. This posted online too, but just the cell tower stuff, just in case people want to look at it. I have the original cell tower contract, the previously amended one. So that's the one that's in force now. The proposed contract by the company, because they did this time send me the full contract. So anyone can look at that. Let me know what you think. And next we have the Muskegon County Housing Needs Assessment. So presentation that I saw on it. So everyone can look at that. Next, the Muskegon County Broadband Inventory presentation I saw on it, so anyone can look at that. And I also included the land sale policy. Because we have a couple of things in here. So the vacation policy here, land sale policy I've included in here. We have 2 new trustees, and so they've been good about inquiring what they need to do to get up to speed. But the rest of the board has seen those before and discussed them and looked at them and had the opportunity to read them since they're pertinent now as well. I figured I would just include them in case they wanted to take a look. So that is the meeting, 6 p.m. on September 11th. So kind of a wild date there. And a lot of stuff to go through. If anyone has specific questions, thoughts, ideas, comments, concerns, feel free to reach out. My direct line is area code 231-332-6700 or email supervisor@daltontownship.org. Until next time, Joe signing off.